Today, I'd like to continue our discussion of the book Undoing the Knots by Maureen O'Connell. We're presently looking at chapter one of Maureen's book, which is part nine of our series here. We're up to interesting quote she has from Pope Francis. She's talking about the idea of becoming sort of this type of church or group that's totally white, that's totally concentrated on itself and really not open to other nationalities, other races, other groups. And she's mentioned in our previous discussion, mentioned about being locked in an upper room of whiteness. Of course, the upper room where Jesus celebrated the Last Supper, and that year, we're celebrating our Mass, our liturgy. Are we kind of locking ourselves in? Are we sort of closing ourselves off to others? And naturally, we're always going to have that tendency to be with people that we're kind of comfortable with, that we're used to being with, people of a similar background. It's kind of a natural feeling that we have. But she quotes Pope Francis, and she says, when we are enclosed in our group, we become ill. So Pope Francis talks about how we can become ill. And you don't often think of that, right? Becoming enclosed in your own group as an illness. I think we kind of think of it as, well, it's just natural. I'm with my group, I'm with the people that I'm comfortable with, this is fine, no problem. But to see it as an illness, you might say, well, what is Pope Francis getting at here? Why is this an illness? And it's an illness because it kind of narrows our vision. It excludes others. And it doesn't allow us the opportunity to grow, to stretch ourselves, to learn more about a different culture. And so, in a way, we can become ill by the way we restrict ourselves to the same group. We're not challenged anymore. We become stale and we become ill. And I think we don't often think of it like that because naturally we just think of being comfortable. Why reach out to somebody else? I mean, I might not like them. Uh, I don't know if it's going to be a good experience. I get a little nervous talking to different types of people. All of these feelings come up. And we can understand that. But we can also understand the fact of not growing, not expanding, not developing a better interest in others and other cultures. An example of that Maureen uses is when people of a different ethnicity move into our neighborhood that had previously been kind of segregated, say an all-white neighborhood, and somebody of color moves in, or somebody from a different ethnic background moves in, and all of a sudden we're like, maybe I should move out and get out of this neighborhood. I'm going to be with people that I've never been with before, and might not be a good experience for me if that happens. Maybe they won't keep up their home as well. Maybe they'll, steal from me. Maybe it'll be a bad experience for me. And so a little kind of precautionary move. I move out of the neighborhood and I move to another neighborhood where I'm with people who are similar to myself, and maybe even maybe a gated community would be nice, where we keep other people out and we have a gate there and the people are restricted and it's safer and better, and you can see how people can sort of move in that direction. Uh, we become comfortable with certain types of people. To overcome that, uh, Maureen suggests the idea of reckoning. And what is reckoning? Reckoning is dealing with contradictions. When you look at it, there are different contradictions that I have to encounter in my life. And it's hard to do that. We like things to be kind of smooth, and when we get into contradictions, we're like, oh, wait a minute now, maybe this is not a good path for me to take. So this idea of reckoning, well, what are the contradictions in my personal history, in my neighborhood, in my church? Why is my church so white? Why is my neighborhood so white? Well, we just kind of accept it. That's the way it is, and we don't question it. We don't look at the contradictions in our lives and what's happening around us. We're just like, well, that's the way it's always been. I didn't cause it. It's nothing I did. And of course, it is nothing we did. But do we ever look at those contradictions and ask, well, why does this church, which is supposed to be open to everyone, we're supposed to go and spread the gospel to all peoples, we're supposed to bring everyone in, why is it just so white in my area? Well, maybe my area is primarily white. Okay, my church is going to be white. But then, why is my area just so white? Are black people excluded? They're not wanted? Do they not want to live with us? Well, what's the story here? And so, reckoning gets us thinking about those types of questions. And she goes from the idea of reckoning, of like asking those questions as to how we got to the place where we are now in our histories, in our lives, in our social settings. She goes from that to the idea of racial mercy. And racial mercy she defines as a willingness to enter into the chaos of racism. A very interesting concept. We don't often think of it in those terms, that racism is going to involve a certain chaos. And so racial mercy is having mercy on myself, that, it's okay to enter into this chaos and, not being too hard on ourselves and beating ourselves up, and all of that is very important. And also racial mercy in terms of other people, people who might think differently than I think. That's part of the chaos of racism, right? People come to very different conclusions about different experiences and different realities. And so it's like, what's happening here? And I think there can be reluctance to raise the question of racism because it can create a chaos. Things seem to be going along very smoothly in my area. There's no problem. It's nice. It's wonderful. Why should I then enter into this chaos of racism? Isn't it better that I just don't think about it? That I just kind of retreat into my own self, my own neighborhood, my own area, and just not worry about these other people. And finally, she comes to a very interesting conclusion about all of this, and she says, I am limited in my ability to respond. And that really struck me. We're limited in our ability to respond, that we can't solve all of the problems, all of the history that's involved. It's very complex. It is chaotic. And so I have to be aware of that as I take on this project of racism and looking at my own personal history as she does, and trying to undo some of these knots, all good stuff. But in the framework of I am limited in my ability. I'm not going to accomplish all of it. And that's okay. Certainly accomplishing what I can accomplish is great. It's wonderful. That's the way we should act in life. It is going to involve chaos and difficulty. But always with that in mind, that I am limited in what I can do.